If your parents haven't tested, but you've tested, can you figure out what your parents' ethnicity results might have been? Well, today we're going to talk about that. Hi, I'm Andy Lee with Family History Fanatics, and I am going to go over the Ancestry Parental Inheritance Tool. Now, they may be calling this something else. I think they have a side view, and it may come up with a different name in the future, but I'm going to call it the Parental Inheritance Tool. And the idea behind this is they are going to take what you have tested and try to separate out which is from your paternal side and which is from your maternal side. So let's go in, take a look at some of the things they say about it and what it looks like. Here on the Ancestry website, if we go over to our DNA story, we can see where this Ancestry tool comes up. Now, first off, it says, hey, we've updated your ethnicity estimate. Now, this is separate from the Ancestry tool. It happened about a week, 2 weeks after. They've added some more regions, 8 new ones in Asia, Africa, and Oceania. So if you are from Asia, Africa, or Oceania, then those might be of interest to you. So let me zoom in real quick on this, and you can see that my genetic makeup according to Ancestry is almost exclusively from Scandinavia and the United Kingdom, and those countries that are part of it. And you can see that it's broken down about 60% from England, particularly Cornwall, where I actually do have an ancestor I know of from there, and that's just in the last 3 generations, as well as Scotland, Ireland, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Wales. Now, you also are able to go and take a look at previous estimates if you want to. But what we're talking about today, if we scroll down just a little bit more, is this ethnicity inheritance. These are your regions inherited from each parent. In other words, what part of this breakdown do you get from each parent? Now, it's divided in half. As you can see, you have inherited from parent 1 and inherited from parent number 2. They don't tell you which is your mother or father necessarily, because that information is not encoded on your autosomal DNA. At the bottom, you can see here how we identify this. I'm going to click on this, and we're going to go over this information. So they call it SideView, and this is figuring out which DNA came from one parent and which from the other. Ancestry does this using DNA matches and the identical DNA you share with relatives. So this is important. You're looking at the DNA matches and which we share with relatives. Obviously, our relatives, for the most part, most people are going to be on one side of our family or the other. For instance, if you have a cousin, he's going to be on your paternal side or your maternal side. Very rarely are you going to have a first cousin or even probably a second cousin that is on both sides. Now, we can do this so well because we have the largest consumer database in the world. Absolutely. And in this case, bigger is better. And that's what they say. The more matches there are and the better the results there are. Now, Ancestry has about 20 million samples in their database. So they do have the biggest database by far. And if this kind of technology is going to work with any company, it's going to work with Ancestry's database. So all of your matches share one or more identical segments with you and at least one of your parents. So we use your DNA matches to split your DNA into halves from each parent. All right. This is where it gets tricky. Because as you can see, your DNA doesn't say, hey, I belong to parent number 1 and I belong to parent number 2. Your DNA just says, hey, I'm DNA. I am AA at this point, or I am AT at this point. It doesn't say whether the A belongs to your mom or the T belongs to your mom or dad. And so Ancestry is using your matches and others to try to determine how that is separated. So after they've separated that into parts, they go through and then calculate those parts, which is different than calculating for the whole ethnicity as a result. Remember, when you're looking at the overall ethnicity, you're looking at 2 letters for every position. AA, CT, GA, anything like that. But when they have separated this out, they've essentially said that, hey, this represents this chromosome from your father, and this represents this chromosome from your mother. And so instead of looking at 2 letters as they're going down, they're really just looking at 1 letter as they're going down along that. This is another key point here. We only see half of your parents' ethnicity. And that is because you only inherit half of your parents' DNA. So these results are not a full example of what your parents have. It is a representation of half of what your parents have. Now, if you happen to have several siblings who have tested as well, you might be able to combine those results to actually see what your parents have. So let's go and take a look at me. Now, I have here parent 1 and parent 2, and you can see me, I am mostly from England, and then I think it's Scotland, Ireland, Scandinavia, and then Wales at the bottom. They have this broken down by the table here and graphically up here. So we can look at either one of them, but obviously everything that you see that is accounted for within me has to be accounted for within this, although it doesn't necessarily have to be broken out the same way. For instance, you see this little purple sliver right at the top. There is a little purple sliver here on parent number 1. That little purple sliver corresponds with Wales. There's also a more darker purple that is right here, accounted for on the other parent. Now, sometimes here, if we look at this light blue, you can see that, hey, this parent number 2 has a significant chunk, but this other parent also has a little sliver of that. While both parents have plenty of the England, most of the others were actually split up between those two parents. So let's look at the percentages just in general. Remember, this represents half of the parents. And so each one of these has to add up to fully what I am. So I'm 63% England, Northwestern Europe, 30% of that 63%, so not quite half, is from parent 2, and 33%, a little more than half, is from parent number 1. Whereas Scotland, I get 13% all from that one parent. Ireland, I get 8% that's divided up by 6% and 2%. And then the others are all from a single parent as it goes down. So you may be thinking, well, this looks good, but how good is it really? Well, for many of our viewers, you may know that I actually took a second DNA test with Ancestry, except that I masked who I was. I said I was somebody else, used a different email, wasn't connected to anything else. And his name in the database is Phil Garnett. So I can actually compare myself, my ethnicity estimate in Ancestry, with Phil Garnett's ethnicity estimate. Now, the interesting thing about this is these were done with 2 different kits that Ancestry has. In other words, Ancestry had changed their chip as far as which SNPs they're looking at. And so this is me as Andrew. And that's what we just went over here. And really, the numbers are what's going to help clue us in, although the graphics do help. So 63, 33, 30, then we have 13s, 8 divided by 6 and 2, and the others are solid. So let's go and take a look at Phil. Now, you may notice here, as I swap between these two, that you actually can't tell too much. There is a little bit of a difference. Not much. For myself, this darker, not quite purple, bluish purple was all on one parent. But when I go to Phil, I see that it's actually divided up between 2 parents. Now, not a whole lot between the 2 parents, a little bit between the 2 parents. What is that dark purple? Well, that dark purple is Ireland. And here, that dark purple was actually Norway. So if I go up to Ireland, they were actually a different color for mine. And that was 8% total, 6 and 2. Whereas with Phil, Ireland's 6% total divided up into 4 and 2. Close, not exact, but close. Another difference you'll see here is that Sweden-Denmark was 7 with me, whereas with Phil, it is 9%. Now again, each chip is pulling different SNPs, and there's some overlap between them of probably 200,000-300,000 SNPs, so maybe half of them are different between the 2 of them. So there's a lot of similarity, but there's just enough that even with somebody like me who has their ethnicity results centered around one area of the world, there's still some slight differences between that. And that's what you're going to see with any time that you take a DNA test with a different chip, is it's going to be slightly different. But overall, they got the major things correct on here between the two. Now, correct when it comes to my actual genealogy, well, that's for another video. But between Phil and Andy, they have most everything the same. So what is my overall view of the new SideView tool from Ancestry? Well, it's colorful, but it's not going to help you with your genetic genealogy. The ethnicities that they show are actually inconsistent when you actually compare with other relatives. And so I don't think it is a reflection of reality. So what would make this better? Well, a couple of things. Now, first off, one thing that they need to get corrected is when you're looking at two different people's ethnicities, they should be showing the same colors. So for instance, if it is from England, it should be showing from England as blue on both of them, not England as blue on one person and England as green on another person. This makes comparing people a lot easier. Other than that, I don't see how this is going to be useful for genealogy. In my next video, I'm going to be reviewing the chromosome painter, which takes this data from SideView into account. Now, I personally think that SideView is a much simpler version of what the chromosome painter is, and probably is more accurate than what chromosome painter shows you. Be sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. And if you'd like to join FHF Extra for only $2.99 a month, we provide even more videos and webinars to our members. If you'd like to learn more about triangulation, then click on this tool right over here. If you liked that video, then be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. And you can also join FHF Extra for only $2.99 a month. And we provide even more videos and webinars to our members. If you'd like to learn more about useful ancestry tools, check out this video over here.